All right. So while the media is focused on regulatory uncertainty all around the Clarity Act, there is a silent list of winners that have already been codified by the CFTC. Today, we're going to be breaking down all of that, including the utility play that really lines up with many of these. And you know who I'm talking about. I'm talking about XRP. We are talking about XLM as well as HBAR. We'll get into Solana, ETH, all sorts of things. So stick around for that. We're going to be charting this today with Evan. It is going to be amazing. Let's get to it. No matter what happens with Clarity, the SEC and the CFTC came together on a token taxonomy. You guys, of course, saw the story out there. I'll bring up a news article that kind of just, for many of you, maybe not aware of this, but basically the SEC and the CFTC came together. The 16 assets that they identified in the front end of what this might look like. And it leads with Bitcoin, ETH, XRP, Solana. There's a lot more here. Obviously, even Doge, Avalanche is in there, Tezos in here, Cardano's in here. You can see the opportunity is pretty significant around many of these. Stellar, which we'll be talking about today, and Hedera also we'll be talking about today. But utility seems to be the narrative. The utility side of things going very fast on this. Before we get into XRP and Hedera, I want to touch on Bitcoin real quick. Give me an alignment of after we saw, some big miners selling off today, which pushed Bitcoin down under 70 again. So we're at 68.9 as we're recording. Where's Bitcoin right now?
So Bitcoin, unfortunately, probably will go down a bit lower. Let me share my, why is it not? Okay, give me 1 second here. Let me get my screen up. So yeah, it should be shared right now. And, unfortunately, I do think you're probably going to lose the kind of 69K area and then potentially come down to 66 or 63. I mean, my main view as a lot of this year is going to be kind of a crab market, kind of very boring. Your larger time frames would signify that there's a lot of change of directions here, that you could potentially come down a bit more, maybe bounce off of the low 60s again. Let's say sometime in, I don't know, next couple of weeks, mid-April, early to mid-April, and then from there, kind of even more boring, coming back up to these areas, maybe towards the end of April, this area. Like, I think that, institutions aren't going to let this probably go down to 50K. Probably not. I think there's a good shot that it's bottomed, but retail's not going to pump this up much above like mid 70s or 80K for a while. So you could be very boring, very range bound for a long time. Very similar a little bit to when you go way back to look at what happened in 2024. I mean, long chop consolidation. I mean, this was, kind of a sideways bear market for a while. So you could be seeing a lot of that. I'm not really seeing anything, majorly kind of bullish. It's just more of a sideways situation. Now, when you look at this 2-week, which is really good, see the VWAP's coming up and the money flow is going down. As on a high time frame here, what does that signify? It signifies chop. It signifies long potential consolidation. So long consolidation, this could go on until like October, I would guess, potentially, and a lot of this range for most of the year. So it's a long-term DCA area.
Yeah.
And I think if you got the patience here, you'll do really well. You just got to be patient.
Well, and looking at, dollar cost averaging in, some people are moving gold assets into Bitcoin. I've seen a lot of movement into that.
Mhm.
Do you think we'll hit a sub 60 anytime this year?
If I had to guess, I would say probably not. I think you will retest the 60s, definitely. I think there's a strong argument to make, though, that you definitely could have bottomed, because when you look at the chart here, you normally bottom out earlier every time. And I would argue that you should have really had the bottom last time in June of 2022. I think FTX was kind of a fluke. So it's about 6 months earlier than last time. So December to June. And now what do we have? February here. So there's
Yeah.
a strong case to be made that's a bottom. But I did just look at this consolidation. You went through consolidation for a lot. And I mean, I could predict with some confidence you're at least going to retest the low 60s again, probably within the next few weeks here. But after that, some more recovery, more chop. So, there's a couple things you could do here. I mean, selling cash secured puts, doing the wheel strategy with options, there's things of that nature. It's long-term DCA, in my
Yeah.
opinion right now. Or it's a trader's market. I mean, it's a crab market. It's usually a
Yeah.
range-bound trader's market. So, yeah.
And Bitcoin at trading today, right now at 68, almost 69K, is still up 10% since the Iranian war started. So that has been an asset that at least has performed, even though if you went to the top, I mean, let's see here. I'm going to just go to mine real quick and just show what was that top. It was about 18, almost 20% all the way to that top, which was around 75. So interesting situations with Bitcoin because I think the key is here, is this a long-term asset that you want to hold and accumulate right now in these price points? Because there's still a lot of people out there who have not entered crypto for the first time, or maybe they're trying to diversify some of their portfolio and they're looking at either going out of metals, maybe taking a look at digital assets, moving some things off the table in real estate. Who knows? But the
Yeah.
real question is Bitcoin, Ethereum, and XRP and the like going to be some opportunities for some of these traders? Let's talk about Ethereum for a second. This was another one of the tokens that was listed in the CFTC commodity list. When you look at ETH right now, this thing is trading nicely right around 2K. Do you like this going back down into that zone of around 1900? And do you think we'll crash below?
So I think in all likelihood, you got a decent shot of having bottomed here at like that 1700 mark. And that's, the first thing we want to look at here is, and I get short term, I think it's very highly likely to come back down to that 19, probably retest 18 as well. These kind of
Yeah.
areas. It's a long consolidation. That's your trend. Your trend is a crab market, long consolidation. You'll probably come down to these areas, scare a lot of people away, and to get a nice jump back into this range. That's what I think that's the most likely scenario here. On the macro, this is pretty good. You're making a higher low. I think there's a strong argument to make that you potentially could have bottomed. If you look at your 2 week here, very similar to Bitcoin, you got your money flow coming out, but your VWAP is coming up after it's been below the zero line for a long time. What does that signify? That's a long, that's signification of long chop, long consolidation. And look at what happened here. Let's compare it to the last time you came up. You got a bit of a recovery. Things were more volatile that time. And then you came back down to make kind of a higher low. And I do think you may see something like that within the next few months, kind of a higher low potentially into May, most likely next month. And then from there, more chop and more consolidation,
Yeah.
probably for a few more months, because you were in this range for a long, long time. From that high, you were in this range for a few years. And it's boring, but that's what does happen sometimes, especially in these environments. If you look at some of your lower time frames here, like, yeah, it doesn't look very good. I mean, your trigger wave right here to the downside on the daily, it seems like you'll probably come down farther in all likelihood. But I wouldn't get overly scared here. I think you have a good shot of hitting off of these levels. If you do make a lower low, a lot of support at like 1500, 1600. I think I would get a little worried if you're losing 1500 because that was your high of, 2018. Like that's not a good situation to be in. But luckily, I don't think that'll happen. I think that we're just going to be in long consolidation, long chop. I think that ETH is got a good shot of, kind of holding up well against Bitcoin here. Because if we look at ETH versus Bitcoin, you're kind of trying to form a trigger wave on your 2 week right there. And you're trying to make a higher low right here, which could be good. Monetary policy would support that. So this could potentially outperform Bitcoin for a few years, similar to kind of what you saw when they ended QT in 2019, or you outperformed Bitcoin for some years. So I am bullish on ETH versus Bitcoin, definitely.
All right, so play a little bit stronger toward ETH, the use case of it. Obviously, we have the Glamsterdam, update coming very soon. That could increase the utility side of Ethereum, which is kind of where I think, and of course, the yield component, which gets into a lot of this institutional capital that could be rolling into this. So that's another factor I think you have to compare. Let me go to this article. I want to show you something real quick. And this was in reference to some of the central banks. And it's kind of interesting. Here we go. Let's share this right here. So this came up. This was an article that broke. Let me kind of see if I can bring this. Yeah, here we go. So
Yeah, I
this was
see
an
that.
article that broke. This is basically some think tanks. They're flagging HBAR, XLM, and XRP in a big push around tokenized RWAs. So a lot of the idea of where we're talking today, which is the utility component, HBAR, Stellar, XRP, all three kind of piping in as possibly big winners here long term. Let's start with HBAR. So if we take a look at HBAR, because this has been trading down for quite some time, is there a possibility that we could see a turnaround here?
Yeah, I mean, potentially. HBAR, I mean, there's been some concerns. It's been in a bear market for a long time. That is what it is. Essentially, you've been kind of bearish, for the entire part of 2025, essentially. But like a lot of other things, this could have hit a bottom potentially right here at around 70 cents. You're correcting. I think in all likelihood, you're either going to see a higher low, or a double bottom, something along this area at 7 cents. The momentum change I'm kind of looking for on a lot of these would be, and could be said for Bitcoin and ETH as well. See these EMAs on your 3 day, how they get
Yeah.
bright. Here, it didn't work too well, but a lot of these times it works excellent because right here, it's just a major momentum change on these EMAs and you go back into a bull market. Like I would say 80% of the time, you come back into a bull market. But obviously, this thing hasn't had very good price action for the past few years, other than the late 2024 mini alt season. So
Right.
there's that. But I do think, short term, just like ETH, like Bitcoin, like most coins right now, you're probably going to retest these lows. But after that, after some consolidation, retest these lows, potentially later this year, quarter three, quarter four, I could see some momentum. I could see this recovering a bit. So definitely something to keep an eye on. A lot of these are very smart to look at their Bitcoin pairs because if it can't outperform Bitcoin, what's the point?
Yeah.
So I'd be looking here. If you lose this low that
Yep.
we're looking at right here in
Mhm.
Bitcoin, I would probably get out of H bar. But until then, there's some potential.
All right. So from H bar, and by the way, the news on Hedera, just so many of you may not have saw this, McLaren, of course, became one of the governing bodies there. And of course, that was big news, I think, in general. If you look at H bar in general, there's a big F1 crowd out there. Are you following F1?
Not too much, not too
I
much,
love it.
but I should though.
McLaren Racing, though, now they are in. So they're on the Hedera Council. There's some interesting things because they've launched this what they call the MCL Collect. It's a free to claim digital collectible program. This is on Hedera, and this is for this year's F1 and IndyCar season. So kind of interesting that they've done that. Could there be some real world asset components that maybe in the future play into this? But interesting move here by both McLaren and also Hedera overall. So I like it because I'm a big F1 fan, with the exception of the new rules. I don't know if you've been following the new rules where they have kind of some electric and some gas, which is cheating.
Ooh, that is cheating.
It,
That's
that's
definitely
cheating.
something.
Let's get into XLM for a second, and then we'll get to XRP. If you look at XLM right now and consider this as another utility token that plays into this, where does this go?
Yeah, I mean, so the first thing we got to realize here is, just the structure is pretty bad. I mean, it's interesting because it just makes a higher low every single, bull market. Had this high, lower high, excuse me.
Yeah,
This one's structurally on the macro, not the best, but things could obviously change. You never know. I think like everything else, you've been in a bear market right now for, let's see, a bit over a year. That's how long an average bear market usually
right.
lasts. So down 80%, that could have definitely been the bottom right here at, what was it, to 12, 13 cents, something of that nature. You're coming up. I think it's going to be very hard to, break above like 18 cents, at least in the short term. I think you're going to see more chop, more consolidation. And then eventually, hopefully quarter four, I do think you can get up to 23 cents. I mean, this does look better than some other things, I will say. What I would want to be waiting for on this one, especially, is this money flow on your daily to come into the green. And that's probably a month or 2 months away. That could be a really good buy potentially in May. And that could, coincide with potentially the start May or June, the start of Kevin Warsh coming in, the end
Yeah,
of the Iran conflict. And I think that could be a really good buy for, a lot of these. But as of right now, I mean, there's decent based on this two week as well. This looks a little bit better because you actually have the view up coming up above the zero line right now. So it looks a little bit better in some other things. So that could be a good bottom signal. There's a strong case to be made that could be the bottom. If you do lose that area, I would get definitely a lot more bearish on this because it's just, it just keeps going down in an extended, bear market. Let's look at this against Bitcoin just quickly here. And yeah, so the thing here, I would just get out if you were to lose this low against Bitcoin, this low that you made against Bitcoin back in early this month, early March, because if it goes any lower than Bitcoin, what's the point? I just don't
yeah.
think there's the momentum. So yeah.
We have had a little bit of a break in the trend lines for XRP. If you go all the way back to essentially the February low of XRP, which slipped down to around 120, and then to where it's trading right now, which is around 136, are we at risk of falling into that zone again, or do you feel like this could recover?
XRP, yeah, I think that when I look at here, I do think, yeah, I think in all likelihood, you probably will lose this range that you're in, and your technical target to lose that range would point to a double bottom, higher low
Mm,
around 115. I think the unique thing on XRP to look at, and this actually shows a lot of strength compared to a lot of coins because this one's currently like above its 200 weekly SMA, which is a huge, huge point. It didn't quite hit it there, kind of almost hit
yeah.
it. I think you'll probably hit it to make kind of a higher low here potentially in next month or May, some area like that. And I think that would be a
Okay.
really, really good buying opportunity. I don't think I think there's a strong case to make that this bottomed at, 112, especially a coin like XRP, it's trended upward with time. Generally, other than 2018, obviously it's done pretty good in the last few years. There's a lot behind this. So I think it looks pretty good. I think it definitely looks
Interesting.
pretty good. So this against Bitcoin too.
Opportunities here.
Yeah, this against Bitcoin too. I mean, I think that you're going to keep this low. If you don't keep this low against Bitcoin, then you got some concerns, but
Yeah.
I think you should be able to keep that low right there.
There you go. All right, so we're going to hit on Solana and then Chainlink for those that want to hit on those. Solana has been somewhat sideways. We've started to see a recovery, then a retrace. It's probably one of the bigger losers over the last week. Right now, continues to be down today as we're reporting. It was like 5%, I think, off. It's the most recent on the 4 hour. What does this look like right now,
I'll tell
Solana?
you exactly. I mean, trigger waves right here. It's not looking too good. I mean, that's a big point. But in the short, I'm talking about the short term. I mean, you know,
Yeah,
$80, you're probably going to make hopefully a higher low, 73. I think there's like a lot of these. There's a good case to be made that they have bottomed. Higher low here, potentially. This is kind of what, if I had to guess, something of this nature. And it's just a very boring, crap market of consolidation for a lot of this year. And then finally you break up in maybe quarter three, quarter four and
yeah,
see some more momentum. So, essentially long term, it looks pretty good. I like the 2 week money flow coming down, VWAP coming up. That signifies a potential bottom, but it also
bingo.
signifies a lot of consolidation. RSI is coming up too, which is that's a bottom signal. So it's pretty good. I'll show you quickly Solana versus Bitcoin. This looks pretty good on its Bitcoin pair, actually, especially if you can hold this low right here. That could have been the low. Something to definitely keep an eye on. If you lose that low, I would probably convert to Bitcoin because I would fathom that this is going to go farther down. But so far, so good
Interesting.
here. So far, so good.
If you're okay, so you continue to play the utility play here. Are you all in on tokens like today? Are you looking at trying to deploy capital right now, or are you still waiting for more pain?
So I'm in ETH. I've been, scaling into ETH. I've converted my gold over to Bitcoin. That was a good trade a few weeks ago. I'm selling cash secured puts on things like MicroStrategy, things like BMNR.
Yeah,
Solana in some of these other ones is a little bit more concerning because when I look at Solana versus ETH right here, this doesn't really look, I would be more attracted to buying ETH. However, you're getting a jump here. So I think Solana could be one of them. Those Solana and XRP could be decent ones to play with right now. Definitely could be
interesting.
a DCA strategy from now until at least June, but ideally October, I think would be the best thing. Um, but ETH is the biggest holding right now.
What
ETH
about
is the one.
a Chainlink?
Chainlink, yeah. If we look at that chart here, I mean, Chainlink, it's an interesting one. I mean, it definitely could have bottomed. Chainlink has a history of just boring us. Like, look at this snooze fest in the
Yeah,
last bear market. Like, I
yeah.
really hope we don't have to, go through this crab
Go through
market for,
that.
yeah, you know what I mean? Like that situation. I think it's decent. It's held lows. It's still alive. It's well above its 23 lows, which is good. There's a lot of bottom signals here potentially in this 2 week I like. So strong case to be made that it's bottomed. I think the better question though, or the real question is, has it bottomed against Bitcoin? And it definitely could have. What you can do here is buy some and then set an alert over here. If it makes a lower low against Bitcoin, then maybe convert back to Bitcoin because, you don't want this to be bleeding, against Bitcoin for more
Right.
than, it's been essentially 5 years. So we definitely got to, keep our eye on that. We definitely got to keep our eye on that. But it's a low risk, high return trade. So, low risk, high reward trades, essentially buy Chainlink. If it makes a lower low against Bitcoin, get out. Because at the end of the day, we're just trying to do better than Bitcoin with all of these altcoins.
Yeah, and you have to look at the global macro side of things because even though the U.S. is debating clarity and all the issues around who is in control of what, you still have Singapore and EU and is still playing into this with Mika. They've already kind of moved forward, and with if you look at those two markets and then look at South America, opportunity wise, it still is a very, very bullish market, but yet at the same time, and we've been getting nothing but good news so far, other than the warship that is clarity that continues to just trudge through all this. But I think in general, the positive news is that institutions are here. We've got some utility clarity now with these tokens in the taxonomy with the CFTC and the SEC. This, of course, changes the strategy around a lot of institution alignment, and I think that is going to be a continued, big win here. So, plus, I think it's going to be an opportunity for these commodities because it's going to give us easier listings, on maybe even other exchanges. We may see some CFTC listings of this type of stuff. So, interesting times ahead for sure. Listen, all right. One token right now that you're investing in today. You said ETH is the one you're playing with today.
ETH is definitely what I'm playing with today. I'm messing around with BMNR a little bit, but my main strategy for ETH here is if it makes a low against Bitcoin, makes another low against Bitcoin, I'm
Where would
probably
that
going
have to be?
and it would have to be not down that much more. Here's ETH Bitcoin. So if it goes down another 7% against Bitcoin, I
Okay.
probably would convert that to Bitcoin. The same thing would be said for BMNR. The other one that's really interesting that I wanted to show you, this is the only one that's been in a bull market against Bitcoin for many years now, Tron. So look at this
Oh
is
my
against
God.
Bitcoin. Look at this. It's outperformed Bitcoin throughout the everything. Okay, yeah, 24 wasn't too good, but it just keeps jumping against Bitcoin. So this could be potentially, if you're a momentum trader, which people do very well on that, this
Yeah.
could be potentially some type of thing to keep your eye on here. Trigger wave on the 2 weeks. We'll see what happens with this. If you look at this
Interesting.
general pattern, it comes down, you have some consolidation.
Yeah.
Maybe you jump. Maybe you jump.
Listen, you've got a lot of other assets that were in that list, including Cardano made it. We saw AVAX coming in, Polkadot, Litecoin, Doge, Shiba, XTZ, Aptos, and even BCH. So there's definite movement here, and this I think is just the first phase too, Evan. I think we're going to see a lot
Yeah.
more that will clarify into there and maybe codify a whole new commodity market going forward. All right, you guys know what to do. Make sure and follow Evan Aldo out there on YouTube. I'll leave his link in the show notes down there. You can find him out there on YouTube at Evan Aldo, doing trading classes and all sorts of tips on market cipher, how to deal with these markets, because it is a trader's market right now. Evan, thanks for
Yes.
coming in today. I appreciate it.
Always an honor talking to you, Paul. Thanks so much.